Hi guys, my name's Jordan Dean, and in this video, I'm going back to my roots a little, giving you a brief look at all the various ants I'm keeping. And do I have a lot to show you guys. There's the big-headed ants in their naturalistic terrarium. The sugar ants, who've been slowly but surely progressing. The Argentine ants, who've now exploded in population. Plus, some new additions, like spiny ants, Dracula ants, meat ants, strobe ants, and more. In this episode, we'll be looking at some of the largest and deadliest ants in the world. They're known as bull ants. And to celebrate the release of our new range of acrylic nests, we'll be running a little contest, so stay tuned until the end for all the entry details. Before I get started, I just want to make it clear that bull ants, that is any species within the genus Myrmecia, should only be kept by experienced ant keepers. Their stings can be quite painful, and if you're allergic to their venom, they could potentially be fatal too. So if you're new to the hobby and are just looking to get started, think about going with some more forgiving ants. Ants like Pheidole or Camponotus. With that now said, let's begin the ant tour. First up, it's my colony of jumping jacks, Myrmecia pilosula, last seen in my bull ant documentary, almost a year ago now. Back then, I had them housed in a tubs and tubes setup, and as they grew, I cycled them through various nests of acrylic and whitong. Today, they're housed in one of our all-new acrylic nests, and have since produced another 2 generations of workers, 14 in total now. And the next generation's on their way. You can see there's quite a healthy pile of eggs there, which the ants usually like to position within the most humid parts of the nest, so as to keep them from drying out. They also have a few small larvae too, you can see just in the bottom left of your screen there. I've come to realize with bull ants, and many other ants too, that often they collect fine substrate like sand and dirt to aid the larvae in the spinning of their cocoons. You'll notice there's a fair amount of sand here, lining areas of the nest. Once the larvae are ready to transform into their pupal stage, they use these little pieces like scaffolding for their silken strands. Watch as this worker covers up her developing sister with a small sheet of sand and silk, almost like she's tucking her in for bed. Which actually isn't far from the truth. Eventually, they'll form their silk into a sleeping bag-like construction, and in here, they'll reside until they develop into workers. What I love most about these guys, and bull ants in general, is their incredible vision. Whenever I come to check up on them, they'll turn their heads and follow any slight movement that I make. Originally, this colony was quite timid around my presence, and would flee back to the safety of their nest at the first sight of me. But with their growth in population, they seem to have grown in confidence too. So now, whenever they're disturbed, they flood out of their nest, and with their excellent vision, they charge towards anything they see. Not so much responding with aggression, but rather curiosity. I think they've caught on to the fact that whenever I come and check up on them, that usually means it's feeding time. So they've learned to associate my presence with being fed. Pretty cool, right? I always use extra long tweezers when working around these fellas, and for good reason. Not only do they pack a nasty sting, but they can jump too, up to several centimeters in fact. So the further away my hands are from them, the better. I do have some thorn lined around the upper edges of their container, but these guys are great climbers, and a couple of times I've actually seen them just jump up and over the barrier, and then just end up casually walking across my table. So I've got to be quick with these guys, do what needs to be done, and then get their escape-proof lid back on ASAP. I've been keeping a tally on how many workers the colony has, so afterwards, just in case, I'll count them off to make sure that there aren't any missing. Which is easy enough to do when there's just 14 workers. Although, as the colony expands, I think changing to a more secure outworld would be a pretty good idea. Now, moving on to the monsters. This beauty is a Myrmecia simillima queen, commonly known as a giant bull ant, and it definitely earns its name. This one measures in at around 25mm from head to tail, roughly twice the size of the jumping jacks. Currently she's just only beginning her colony and has several larvae present, which she constantly tends to. All bull ant queens found their colonies in a semi-claustral manner, meaning they must leave their claustral chambers to forage for food whilst their first generations of workers are still developing. For this reason, I've got this queen housed in a tubs and tube setup. This little bottle cap here is full of what I've found to be most ants' favourite food: pure raw honey. What's great about honey is that as long as it hasn't been watered down or isn't exposed to high humidity levels, it won't ever go bad. This single capful here has sustained this queen for a couple of months now. She simply comes out and feeds from the reliably fresh and nourishing honey whenever she likes. And because she doesn't need to be disturbed as often by her keeper, upon the removal and replacement of any perishable foods, it reduces the chance of her consuming her eggs or ceasing to lay out of stress. So it's both a super practical and effective method of feeding. The queens themselves can live off sugars like honey alone, but their brood on the other hand are carnivorous. So once their first batch of eggs hatch into their larval stage, like these ones have, the queens must then go out and hunt for them. So now, for this queen, I additionally provide her with all sorts of bugs. I found earwigs to be one of her favourites. The larvae are eating machines, often leaving no sign of their prey behind, chewing through and devouring exoskeletons and all. And as soon as they're done with their meals, they're instantly craving more. So the queen acts like a mother bird tending to her chicks, constantly at work foraging for the choicest meals, to make sure that her young grow up big and strong. Next up is another especially large giant. Here we have a Myrmecia pyriformis queen. She measures in at around 30mm from head to tail. To put that size into perspective, here she is side by side with some of the more commonly found ants. On the bottom we have rainbow ants, Myrmecia, your average sized ant. In the middle, banded sugar ants, one of Australia's largest species of Camponotus. And dwarfing them both is this beast. Despite her massive size and rather menacing appearance, she's by far the most timid bull ant in my collection. At just the slightest hint of danger, she quickly flees back to the safety of her test tube. She's super sensitive to light, vibrations, and any movements too, and thus she's quite susceptible to eating her own eggs. Prior to her current batch here, she's eaten the previous two, so I think I'm going to leave her completely undisturbed for at least a couple of months and see how she goes. Hopefully it's third time lucky. So they aren't just giant, fearless killing machines, they do have a softer side too. Watch here as she tenderly picks up one of her eggs with her huge mandibles. She has to be incredibly careful. If she were to apply just a little too much pressure, her huge serrated teeth would shred the egg right open. It's amazing just how gentle they can be. Next, we have yet another giant. This one is a Myrmecia nigriscapa queen. She measures in at around 30mm, head to tail, same as the pyriformis queen. But other than that, the two have very little in common. Where the pyriformis queen is timid and anxious, this one is bold and rash. Just recently her eggs have begun hatching into larvae, so I'm having to frequently disturb her for feeding, which can be quite scary at times. As soon as I open up her lid, she bolts out of her tube and attacks anything that moves, attempting to bite and sting it into a retreat. and she remains on this high alert defense mode well after her perceived threat is gone. Even when she's relatively undisturbed, I often see her prowling around her foraging area with some haste. She really is quite a character. It'll be interesting once her first generations of workers arrive. Hopefully they're not all as crazy as she is. Workers are still a long way off though. Generally, the larger the species of ant, the slower their growth rates are from egg to worker. It takes my jumping jacks here, which are less than half the size of these guys, roughly 2 months to fully develop. So it'll likely be several for these giants. Needless to say, it takes a great deal of patience to get one of these colonies going, perhaps several years before they reach a mature size. But I'm fine with that. For me, I think it makes all the typical ant-keeping milestones, like when the queen lays her first batch of eggs, or raises up a new generation of workers, that much more satisfying. So that's all for the giant bull ants. Now, moving on to the toothless ones. Here we have a small colony of Myrmecia piliventris. Easily some of the prettiest ants I've ever seen, and also some of the scariest. Not only are they extremely large and agile, but they can jump too. They're like jumping jacks on steroids. Here you can see the difference between the two. These guys take some real nerve to be around. They're commonly known as toothless bull ants, as their mandibles lack the prominent serrations found on most of the other bull ants. So they look rather slender and quirky. Although sometimes these guys are simply referred to as golden-tailed bull ants, for obvious reasons. Here you can see the queen of the colony, who vaguely stands out from the rest with her slightly larger frame. I find she's really calm compared to her workers. Whenever I disturb them for feeding or to hydrate their nest, all the workers rush around in a panic, but she just usually sits there motionlessly, which is quite odd. I find usually the opposite is true. These ants are really quite sensitive to light, so I try to keep their nest covered up as much as possible. This jumbo playing card here acts as a neat little cover. Shout out to Eli over at Ants Invasion for the idea. See how all the ants are bunched up on the right side of the nest? This here is the moistened side. Through various testing, I've discovered this colony prefers a relatively humid nesting environment, so I've been injecting around 5 milliliters of fresh water into either one of the sides once every 4 to 5 days or so. A common misconception with Waitong is that when the material isn't visibly wet, it means that it's in need of more water. Because of this, you often hear of people hydrating their nests once every few hours or so. This is entirely unnecessary, and depending on the humidity preferences of your ants, it could potentially be deadly too. Waitong acts like a sponge. It soaks the water in, and gravity pulls it down into the base of the material. The water then evaporates upwards, providing the ants with a slow and steady release of humidity. So don't stress if the nest looks visibly dry less than a couple of days after hydrating. Now, onto another, even prettier looking ant. Here we have a Myrmecia fulvipes queen, also a toothless bull ant. You can see this species looks a lot like piliventris, but instead of having black legs, they have bright orangey reddish ones. I just love their vibrant colours. A truly stunning looking ant. The good news is she just recently laid a batch of eggs. The bad news? She has mites. Lots of mites. She's absolutely covered in these little things. From what I've gathered, they're currently in a stage known as hyperpus. In this stage, the mites don't actually feed on their host, but simply latch onto them as a means of dispersal. So fingers crossed they drop off without doing her any harm. You'll notice she's been housed a little differently to the other queens, with her test tube covered and connected up to her foraging area externally, rather than being placed directly inside. This is my preferred means of raising queens, as it allows you to check up on them with minimal disturbance. You just simply slide off and on the cover of their tube. More on how to set one of these up in my tubs and tubes tutorial here. Now onto a rare and rather odd looking species. Here we have Myrmecia nobilis, commonly known as the wide-jawed bull ant. I say it's odd in that they have a very stocky frame for a bull ant, especially noticeable when you compare their mandibles. Perhaps that's where the species name of nobilis was derived. What I also found peculiar is that she really likes to pulsate her abdomen. Most insects have large air sacs within this part of their body, and so compress and expand them to allow them to breathe. Ants do this to some extent too, but I've never seen the action quite as pronounced as this. It looks very wasp-like, which I guess I shouldn't be too surprised over. Bull ants, in general, are quite primitive ants, not so far removed from their wasp-like ancestors. Now I'm not actually certain whether this is a queen or just a worker. The usual queen giveaway is the scarring you'll find on either side of their thorax, where the ant's wings used to be. And you can usually tell them apart from their overall larger thorax when compared to the workers too. But the scarring on this one isn't clearly evident, and because this species is rare, it's hard to find workers for a cross-reference. Very little is known of these ants, which will make raising up and studying a colony of them that much more fascinating. So I'm really hoping she is both a queen and fertile. I'll just have to wait and see. So that's all the bull ants I've got to show you guys today. I hope you've enjoyed the tour. Well, the first part of the tour anyway. I've got a lot more ants to show you guys. And yes, including that Pheidole colony in the naturalistic setup, which I know many of you guys have been long awaiting to see. And remember those Argentine ants featured in my documentary? Well, I've still got them, and have they lived up to their reputation? We've had to make some serious upgrades for these guys. Here's a look at their new outworld. And here's their new nest. Think it's big enough? Video on these crazy things coming soon. Now, onto the contest. Firstly, I just want to thank you guys for the overwhelming support here on YouTube. Since day one, I've been reading all your comments, and your amazing, encouraging, and constructive feedback has really driven me to improve and innovate my content. So much so that Ants Australia is now bigger than me. A team of people, in fact, working hard to make ant keeping an accessible and affordable hobby for everyone. We'll never forget that it's you, our fans, that built us up. And so, as a way of giving back to the community, over the next few videos, we're going to be giving away some of our new acrylic nests. For this video's entry, all you have to do is leave a comment below, answering what particular aspect of ants do you find most fascinating. This could be in regard to their behavior, biology, taxonomy, etc. We'll pick out our most favorite and insightful comment, and the winner will receive one of our new size 3 acrylic nests, in their choice of either red or green. The winner will be revealed in our next video. In the meantime, head over to our new Ants Australia community channel, run by who were formerly known as Antmate. We're excited to announce that the team over there has now joined forces with ours. Over on this channel, we'll be featuring regular ant content, such as ant keeping tutorials, colony updates, and we'll also be featuring other ant tubers, like our good friend Eli from Ant Invasion, and James from Ants International. And if you're feeling lucky, we'll also be running regular contests with more awesome prizes to be won. All the links will be in the description below. A few more announcements before I go. Firstly, we've been getting lots of feedback from disappointed fans, especially from Europe and the US, saying that our shipping costs are just far too high, and understandably so. We've been working long and hard to amend this issue, and we're happy to announce we've just struck a deal with Australia Post and have managed to drastically drop shipping prices worldwide. So now you hopefully won't be paying more in shipping than the product itself. Secondly, now that it's spring here in Australia, our nuptial flight season is just beginning. Keep your eyes peeled for queens. If you don't have any luck finding one yourselves, or you're after a difficult to find species, we're now offering queen ants and colonies for sale on our shop. So far we've found queens of furnace ants, jumping jacks, giant bull ants, and more. Just a reminder that these ants are available to Australians only, and we do not condone the import or export of exotic species. And lastly, because of you guys and your incredible support, I'm now taking this whole YouTube thing on full time, so expect to see more regular content from now on. Exciting times ahead. As always, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed.